There's a lot of hype going around with how do the Norwegians train? And we see runners like, the Ingebrigtsens, Jakob Ingebrigtsen, who has been crushing it in the 1500 meter, in the mile, in the 5,000 even. This guy is a pretty good runner. We can even look back at history of Norwegian athletes training in what we imagine is like a cold climate. And what is it that they're doing? Because with cycling, with Nordic skiing, and with running, they tend to do pretty well. People are curious about how they train. And one of the things that they do is they train close to threshold pace, but they don't go faster than threshold pace. And they just do that again and again, and they accumulate a lot of volume in there. There's a lot of easy running in there as well. But there is this one workout called the Norwegian 4x4. Now, this workout is simply running hard for 4 minutes, taking 4 minutes easy, doing that 4 times, 4x4. Now, this is a protocol that's designed to increase VO₂ Max. And runners love to do VO₂ Max workouts, lactate threshold workouts. These are kind of the buzzwords in the running community. In the cycling community, maybe as well. But the rationale behind this is that if I can increase my VO₂ Max and my lactate threshold, then I'm gonna be a better runner. Now, it's not that this is true or untrue, it's that there's a couple of issues here, but before we go to what those issues are, many of you might already know them because we talk about them in our other videos. Let's just talk about this workout, how to do it, and then I'll give you some recommendations for how to implement it. It's very simple. It's very simple. Now, you wanna warm up by running, we have videos on this as well. How long do you want to warm up? Well, it's at least 7 minutes. It takes about 7 minutes to be delivering blood to the relevant working muscles and get yourself literally warmed up, but neuromuscularly warmed up. So easy running, nice warm up. And then you want to get yourself neuromuscularly warmed up for the demands of running fast. How do we do that? You can do some strides. You can do some short intervals, 200s, 400s, nothing crazy, nothing to exhaust yourself. Just get the legs really turning. Once you're well warmed up, then you want to go into a series of 4-minute runs. Now, how fast should these be? They should be, you got to listen carefully here because I'm going to tell you that these should be nearly all out. But that doesn't mean that each interval is all out. And it doesn't mean you go all out from the gun, of course. We've all seen it where a new runner, the gun goes off in a 5K and they take out like a bat out of hell. And then they fade and fade and fade. So they might have been going all out effort, but if you run a lap on the track and you just go all out from the gun, you're gonna be, praying for death basically by the time you get to 200 meters, if not before. And then you're slowing down so much, but you're going all out the whole time. So that's not what we want. We want an even pace. Now, an even pace throughout a 4-minute interval, well, that just comes down to your ability to pace. So there's a little bit of trial and error here, but most of you are well-educated, well-experienced runners that you can probably pace yourself pretty well, pretty evenly for a 4-minute interval. But we also want each of the 4 intervals that you're going to do to not be slowing down or speeding up. We want them to be so that by the time you get to your 4th one, that is pretty close to as hard as you could have gone. Now, does it need to be absolutely to the max? No. It should be at about 90 to 95% of your heart rate max. Now, why 4 minutes? There's actually a bunch of great research on doing shorter intervals, even 1-minute intervals, and still being able to improve your VO₂ max. But 4 minutes may be superior, and here's the reason why. And this goes all the way back to, if you've read Daniel's Running Formula, a fantastic book, he talks about VO₂ max training. And as far as I'm aware, he's the first mainstream coach back in the 90s, this was, who was really promoting lots of VO₂ max training, lactate threshold training. But if you go out, if you know what your VO₂ max pace is, now this is a pace that you could roughly sustain for about 11 or 12 minutes in a race. If you had a 12-minute race and you ran as hard as you could and dropped dead at the end, you were likely about at your VO₂ max. So what does this mean for race pace? If you're an elite runner, these workouts are going to be done probably a little bit faster than 5K, but unless you're really at the top of the world, these are going to be somewhere between 5K and 10K race pace. And it kind of depends just on your fitness. The faster you are with your race times, the closer to 5K pace that's going to be. So look at what we're doing here. I'm going to tell you why it's 4 minutes and then why it's 4x4 minutes. The reason that it's 4 minutes, so all the way around, the reason it's 4 minutes is because it takes some time for you to reach a steady state. So we know the term VO₂ max, but you also have VO2. VO2 is the amount of oxygen that you're using. So right now you have a VO2 of whatever, 30 ml/kg minutes. I'm making that up. But then if you go for a walk, your steady state, the amount of oxygen you're using will start to go up. It'll start to go up and then it'll plateau and it'll be nice and flat. If you go for a jog, if you take it from there and you start jogging, or is it yogging?
I believe it's jogging or yogging. It might be a soft J. I'm not sure, but apparently you just run.
Your VO2 will go up and then it'll hit a steady state because that's the appropriate amount of oxygen that you need. Now you keep running faster and faster and faster and faster until, even if you took a couple of minutes to get to a steady state, you can keep going faster, but eventually you'll get to a point where your VO2, the amount of oxygen they're using per kilogram of body weight per minute, does not continue to increase. You've reached your VO2 max. Now the VO2 max it depends on the research you look at. It's kind of an illusion. Your VO2 will continue to go up past the max, but very slowly, and normally you start to fatigue so much that you'll be slowing down and you're just gonna stop if you try to go harder. But your VO2 max will essentially, if we were to graph this, eventually get to a point where it can't go any higher. Now that's your VO2 max. Now the purpose of this training is to increase that. How do we increase that? Well, we want to run very close or even almost exactly at VO2 max. Now, if you're running slower than VO2 max, you're not giving yourself the full stimulus to increase that. If you're running faster, you're starting to fatigue yourself, you're building lactate really quickly, and you're building hydrogen ions, acidosis, and you're gonna not be able to maintain the interval for as long. So it maybe was too fast. We would have got a better training effect by slowing it down to VO2 max. So that's what we're trying to do. Now 4 minutes is the prescription here because it takes 2 to even 2.5 minutes to reach a steady state VO2. So if you go and do it may take as little as 1.5 minutes, but anywhere from 1.5 minutes to 2.5. So if you do 1 minute intervals at VO2 max, so let's say this is your VO2 max here. This is your VO2 when you're just warmed up. And you do that 1 minute interval, you start to increase the VO2, and then you never hit VO2 max because it takes 1.5 minutes to 2.5 minutes to just reach that VO2 max. You can't just go out the door and be at VO2 max. Nope. You can get to VO2 max pace, but you can't get to actual VO2 max until your body allows yourself to increase your heart rate, deliver more blood, increase your breathing rate, turn on enzymes, shunt blood certain places, and then you're at your VO2 max. So that's why it's 4 minutes. If it were shorter, then you might never actually reach VO2 max. If it were faster or longer might be okay, but we're starting to have a very difficult interval if we do this. 6 minutes at a pace you could sustain for 12, well, this is getting pretty difficult and you can only repeat it so much. So 4 minutes, it shouldn't necessarily be less than that, although there is some research that shows it'll still work. 4 minutes is an ideal. Now, why do we do 4x4 minutes? It's about the most workload that you can do. So if, let's say that an elite runner who can run a 5K and say, I don't know, 12 minutes, 13 minutes. Now, if they do 4x4, that's of course 16 minutes. So they can accumulate 16 minutes at training at VO2 max pace, where even if they ran a 5K race, they would only be getting 12 or 13 minutes around that pace. So you get a larger dose of running at VO2 max pace, but pace and VO2 max are not the same. So they're actually gonna get a lower dose of actual time spent at VO2 max. Now, if we assume that they're doing a 4 minute interval and it takes 2 minutes to get up there, then they've got 2, 4, 6, 8 minutes at VO2 max, which is pretty good. 3/4 of the training effect that they'd get from a race with their heart and lungs, but 125% of the effect that they would get neuromuscularly. So this is a double whammy. You get a lot of extended strides. Now we talk about strides as well, and strides should be done somewhere between mile and 5K race pace. So this is essentially a similar pace. It's a little faster for most people, but you're getting some sort of a speed work neuromuscularly in there. So this is very good, but we're also addressing the VO2 max. Now, why do we stop at 4? Because the workout would become very difficult if you were to do even more, and the pace would probably start to slow and you wouldn't be able to maintain the VO2 max unless you rested for 10 minutes. And then your heart rate's coming way down and it takes even longer to get back up to VO2 max. So we don't want to take too long of a break. We want to take a break so we can get back at it, but too long of a break, and we're kind of just doing like a bunch of one-offs. And you're better off just really doing strides if you're going to do that. So, and that's why we cap it at 4. More would be too much. Now, should you jump into this and do 4x4? No, because this is an exorbitantly difficult workout. Maybe the hardest one that you would do all week. No, regardless of the kinds of training you're doing, this is tough. So, should we jump right into that? No, I don't recommend that. I recommend starting a Norwegian 4x4 by doing maybe 2 4-minute intervals. Do that for a couple of weeks, add in a third. Do that for a couple of weeks, add in a fourth. And the research done on this with not very committed runners such as yourself, but with people who are athletic, but they're not training for a sport. In those studies, they took 6 months to get up to 4x4. You probably don't need that long if you're running easy and doing strides, but I would suggest to you that you don't jump right into this. Take a month or 2 or 3. What's the rush? And the second thing you can do is, instead of just doing less intervals, you could take a bigger break between them. You can do 4 minutes on and take 10 minutes off. Now, ideally later on, that's not what the protocol, but it is getting ready for that protocol. Alternatively, you can shorten the interval and you can go 3 minutes and then 4 minutes off. That makes the whole workout easier. The only problem there is you might be tempted to run even faster because it's only 3 minutes instead of 4. And now we're running too fast for VO₂ max pace. So if you do that, you have to self-govern to run at a pace that you could have sustained for about 4 minutes, but you only sustained it for about 3 minutes. Okay, so that's a way that you can get your foot in the door as well. I recommend that you start with just less intervals, but you do them kind of hard. So that's the protocol for you. It's pretty simple, Norwegian 4x4, but there's a couple of catches here. Now, there's 2 main ones. The first one is, who cares about improving your VO₂ max? VO₂ max is not what drives your performance. It's not the cause of your improved performance. It is simply correlated with the higher fitness that you have. And the higher fitness caused the increase in performance. And your VO₂ max may or may not come along for the ride. That's why you can take 2 elite runners who have equal marathon times, or 10K times, whatever, and you can measure their VO₂ max and they would be different. But they ran the same time because another one had perhaps better running economy, or perhaps better, metabolic efficiency. So VO₂ max is not, we should not get hyper-focused on trying to improve VO₂ max. That is not the contributor of performance, and I'll prove it to you. And we have videos in the Run Elite channel here that sort of debunk VO₂ max and lactate threshold being the limiters of your performance. But you can just do a real quick thought exercise. When you're running a marathon, you might be at perhaps 85% of your VO₂ max, but something gets maxed out, doesn't it? If you run as hard as you can for a marathon and you drop dead at the end, you maxed out something, but it wasn't your VO₂ max. You never even got up to VO₂ max. So VO₂ max is not the limiter of your performance. Does it contribute to your metabolic systems and your ability to run well? Yes, of course it does. I'm not going to say it doesn't, but it is not the limiter of your performance. And that's what our whole Run Elite training and the triphasic model is addressing, those limiters of performance. So where does this exist in your training? It exists in one of 2 places. Either your support training, that makes the most sense. You do your base training, you build up your miles, you build up your neuromuscular efficiency, you improve your diet, you improve your health, you decrease excess body fat, you get fit across the board. Then that's base training. Then we have support training and specific training. Specific training, if you're a marathoner, you want to be training specific for the marathon. And this Norwegian 4x4 is not specific to the marathon. What does running hard for 4 minutes have to do with running hard for 2 or 3 or 4 hours? Not much. Different metabolic systems, different biomechanics. So it's not base training. It's not specific training. It is, you guessed it, support training. That's a great place to put Norwegian 4x4s. And in fact, that's what we do, isn't it? We do trainings in your support phase. We do roughly 1 workout per week that is faster than goal race pace, whatever the race is. And we do 1 workout per week that is slower than race pace, but at a higher volume. So this qualifies as fast quality, and you can do it. And perhaps you may even want to. You maybe even should do this. You may want to experiment, but that's where it goes. So I said there's 2 places you can put it. The other place is that you can do this in your base training, provided that you have a long base phase. Now in the Run Elite book, we talk about 6 weeks, 6 weeks, 6 weeks for each phase. But remember, base training is not 6 weeks, it's at least 6 weeks, with the other 2 phases being 6 weeks. So if you have 6 months of base training, and a lot of you do, as you get towards the latter portions of your base training, you can throw in some interval component. You can do higher quality or higher quantity even of strides. You can do informal speed workout, which is do some intervals, but we're not really burning it down here. You can do short tempo runs. We don't want to start peaking your fitness, but we want to start addressing these kind of middle tier systems, a little bit of the anaerobic systems here, a little bit of your VO₂ max development. So if you have a long base phase, and I can't tell you how long that is, how long it needs to be. It's just relatively long, and it's based off of your own personal history. But if you have 6 months, 9 months, and a lot of you do, you can take maybe the last 25% or 30% of your base training, and you can do this once per week. Once per week. I'm not aware of any research where doing this more than once per week was ever done. You can imagine that there might be a benefit there, but once a week is good. This is a tough workout. And here's the final thing for you. And this kind of just like takes the whole thing, puts it on the back burner and says, don't forget the big picture. So VO₂ max is not the limiter of your performance. So we don't want to focus on it too much. But even if it were, check this out. Are you ready? I'm going to tell you how to instantly improve your VO₂ max. Are you ready? Instantly, like literally on this call, on this video right here. All you need to do is go use the bathroom. Yep, VO₂ max went up. Why is that? You didn't improve your heart and your lungs and your oxygen carrying capacity or your mitochondria. So why would your VO₂ max go up? Remember that VO₂ max is measured in ml/kg minutes, which is milliliters of oxygen that you can use per kilogram of body weight each minute. That's how we measure it. That's where the number 70 ml/kg minutes comes from. So the easiest thing to change on there is your body weight, the middle one, ml/kg, kilograms of body weight. If you reduce your body weight, your VO₂ max went up. No training necessary, baby. No intervals necessary. You can do the intervals, of course, maybe you should, but you can increase your VO₂ max simply by losing body weight, by definition. And the quickest way to lose body weight, go use the bathroom. Yep. You can also wear light shoes, light clothing. If you can reduce your weight, not only are you more efficient, less injury prone, all of these great things that come with it, but VO₂ max actually goes up. So that is all to say, if you are not yet moving towards an even superior diet from where you've been, you know, maybe some of you here are like really doing like the most amazing job ever. I can't even believe it with diet, but we all, myself included, for sure, we all have improvements that we can make with diet. And if we do that and we lose even half a pound of excess body weight. Now, we don't want to lose lean tissue. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about water retention, excess body fat, mucoid plaque in your intestine. If we can minimize those, VO₂ max goes up, but also health goes up, longevity goes up, sleep goes up, recovery goes up. So use this technique, the Norwegian 4x4, but let's not holy grail it. You know, I've got a book right here called The Holy Grail of Investing. Let's not call it the Holy Grail. It is the Holy Grail if you want to improve VO₂ max through workouts. But if you lose, and we've got a couple runners here, even on this call, who are 230 marathoners who have lost 30 pounds in the last 2.5 months. Now that improves your VO₂ max far more than any 4x4 Norwegian protocol, any protocol could do. So I'll leave you with that. Go ahead and try this workout. Thank you so much for watching the Run Elite video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to learn more about your training, your nutrition, and how to maximize your performance, pick up a copy of Run Elite, Train and Think Like the Greatest Runners of All Time on Amazon or Audible today. See you on the next video.